Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes a whole bunch of sources, finds the really key stuff, and gives you a shortcut to being properly informed. So imagine you're facing a massive life decision. Maybe it's a job offer, really high stakes, feels exciting, but also overwhelming. You turn it down. But then this little nagging feeling starts. Our author, he found himself right there in 2018, thinking about a job at GE. GE, 130-year-old company, huge mission. Build a world that works. His wife, Wendy, she saw it wasn't just pressure, it was a challenge he really needed to take on.
It's amazing, isn't it, how those really personal moments can spark something so much bigger. He also mentions another time similar stress, and his wife, Anne, just said, do something about it. And that little push, it led him to a sports psychologist. And from there, this whole 4-year investigation kicked off, applying psychology to leadership. The insights he found, they really did change things for him, professionally and personally.
That's quite the backstory. And it really sets up what we're doing today, doesn't it? We're diving into this really fascinating book. It pulls together ideas from positive psychology, sports psych, personality psych, all aimed at giving you a shortcut to being a better leader, basically cutting through the usual fluff. And what I find really great is this isn't just like abstract theory. These ideas, they were actually tested in the C-suite, Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, that real-world testing is key. That's what makes it so practical. So you're going to hear some things that might surprise you, maybe seem a bit counterintuitive, some surprising facts, and really importantly, practical tools you can actually use right away for leading yourself and leading others. So where should we start? Maybe the origin story.
Yeah, that feels right. Let's start there. It's a good one. The author, he brought in this sports psychologist, Dr. Daniel Zimet, consulted with him like over 150 hours. Dr. Zimet basically became the book's scientific referee. He sounds like quite a character himself. 38 national handball titles, described as scrawny and scrappy. But apparently, he once played against someone built like an NFL tight end.
And the story Dr. Zimet tells, it's about his best ever handball match.
Yeah.
It was a tiebreaker, 1997 Nationals. And here's the thing, he actually lost.
Yeah.
9-10. It's this guy, Kendall Lewis. But Zimet, despite all his wins, he said this loss was his most important moment ever. Why? Because he played absolutely flat out, the best he possibly could. The effort, not the result, defined him. It showed his quality as a player and a person.
Wow. Okay, so a loss being your most important moment because of the effort, that's definitely counterintuitive. So what does that mean practically for a leader? In a place where winning is usually everything, how do you build that mastery mindset?
It changes everything, doesn't it? Imagine a culture where the focus is on getting better, on growth, not just on winning every single time. It shifts focus from just the short-term results to long-term ability, resilience. And this idea, mastery over just winning, it connects perfectly to the next big concept, the PERMA framework.
Ah, PERMA. That comes from Martin Seligman. He argued psychology is, well, bigger than just fixing problems, right? It's about helping people actually thrive in work, life, everything. And PERMA stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, the building blocks for well-being, for individuals, but also for organizations.
Exactly. Let's start with P, positive emotions. The book points out, look, some of this is genetic, about 50% heritable. Cheerfulness, for instance, is normally distributed. Some people are just naturally sunnier. But here's the key insight. While you can work on being more cheerful, the upside is limited. Maybe you can move up that scale by like 10, 15%. That's it.
Okay, so if our baseline for feeling positive is somewhat set, it means we can't just focus on P to really thrive. We need the other parts too. Engagement, relationships, meaning, accomplishment. Those are areas where we have more control, yeah.
Precisely. Which brings us nicely to E for engagement. And this connects to Mahali's idea of flow. You know, that state where you're super concentrated, really productive, creative. Time just flies. He argued the best motivation isn't some external reward. It's when doing the thing is its own reward.
Yeah, I know that feeling. And the book links this to another great concept, ROTS, return on time spent, David Giroux's idea. It's about being really ruthless, auditing your time, and crucially saying no to stuff that doesn't give you a good return, which is hard. Yeah. Because those low ROTS things like endless emails, pointless meetings, they're so easy to do, low activation costs, you get those little dopamine hits, but long term, total disengagement.
You've nailed a huge problem leaders face. How do you fight that? Shopify had a brilliant idea. They built an app showing the cost of meetings right on the calendar invite. A typical 30-minute meeting, 3 people, could be $700, maybe up to $1,600, making that cost visible. It slashed unnecessary meetings. Save them an estimated $275 million a year. It's about making people aware of what their time and attention are worth.
Wow, that's a concrete example. So, fostering real engagement. It's less about making tasks fun and more about how we focus. Things get interesting because you focus on them. Plus, getting immediate feedback helps, like mowing the lawn, you see the result right away. And using SMART goal-specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based, that helps track progress, whether the task is simple or complex.
That's right. And tracking progress leads us to R for relationships. There's this huge Harvard study, ran for decades, right? Found that positive relationships are the single biggest predictor of lifelong well-being, the most important. And think about meetings again. Why are they popular? Often it's the social connection. We're wired for it. The author even says good working relationships were the key factor in him taking a major job.
That makes sense. Relationships are foundational, but
Yeah.
I've also seen places where everyone's so nice that nobody wants to give tough feedback. Is there a downside leaders need to watch
Oh,
for?
absolutely. That's a classic trap. The overly nice culture, people hold back criticism to keep the peace, but it hurts the organization in the end. The takeaway here, inspired by Jack Welch at GE, is constant honest feedback. Make those year-end reviews almost pointless because everyone already knows where they stand. It needs to be ongoing, qualitative. Takes courage, though. Leaders have to encourage that candor.
And it's deeper than just feedback, right? Daniel Coyle's culture code work, he found that top teams often call themselves family, built on safety, belonging, trust, vulnerability. But the book points out a big killer for that, lack of role clarity. If people don't know exactly what they're responsible for, leads to infighting, competition, undermines the whole family feel.
Yeah, that ambiguity is poison for trust and collaboration. Okay, so next up is M for meaning. This is about what feeds your soul long-term, connecting to something bigger than just yourself. But, and this is crucial, the author warns against faking it. Those cliche mission statements make the world a better place, like in HBO's Silicon Valley. They often ring hollow if people don't genuinely believe them.
Like Simon Sinek's Start with Why. People buy the why, not just the what.
Yeah.
The book says that's great for marketing, sure, but it has to be real. Authenticity matters.
There's a great story in the book about this. The author debated with friends whether finance actually has meaning. One friend, a CEO, just called him a bankster, dismissive. But another friend, a retired mortgage bond trader, had a different view. He said, look, trading those bonds created the money flow so people in small towns could get mortgages. Enabled home ownership way beyond big cities. It totally reframed the purpose behind the work.
That's a fantastic reframing. Makes you think how many people don't see the bigger impact of their job. Reminds me of that 3 bricklayers story. One says laying bricks, another building a wall, the third says I'm building a great cathedral. The author uses that idea. An analyst who sees their job as helping clients enjoy better retirements is going to be way more motivated than someone just debugging this spreadsheet. Finding meaning transforms everything. Viktor Frankl wrote about finding meaning even in suffering.
And finding that meaning, that purpose, naturally connects to the last piece of PERMA, A for accomplishment. But Seligman defines this not just as winning, but as achieving mastery goals, shifting from external validation to internal growth. The author tells a really poignant story about his son Charlie quit Taekwondo right after getting his black belt. It was an ego-driven goal, apparently. And he lost badly to some really talented kids in a competition, and it just crushed his self-worth.
Oof, that's rough, especially for a kid. It connects to Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath idea too, doesn't it? Talented students going to super competitive places like Ivy Leagues and suddenly feeling inadequate. Their egos get shattered.
Exactly. So the big lesson for leaders is, don't just push for winning's sake. Redefine success. Focus on mastery for mastery's sake. That builds long-term well-being and keeps people motivated. And it's worth remembering, these PERMA elements aren't totally separate. Research shows they're really interconnected, meaning an accomplishment, for instance, are like 79% correlated. Together, they shift the focus away from just the scoreboard to what really drives people long-term.
Okay, great. So that covers the PERMA building blocks. Now let's shift gears a bit to actually executing on goals. Principle 10 is about optimizing stress. We usually think stress is bad, right? But the book challenges that. It talks about the Yerkes-Dodson law, that inverted U curve. You need some stress, some arousal to perform well. Not too little, not too much, just the right amount.
Right. And the nuance is key for leaders. Complex tasks, R&D, strategy design, or hard exam. You actually need lower stress levels for concentration. Think of a basketball player at the free throw line. Game on the line. Too much pressure often makes them miss. But simple tasks, basic math, sprinting. You can handle more pressure and still perform fine. It links to Daniel Kahneman's thinking fast and slow, high stress, messes with that careful, slow thinking you need for complex stuff.
Makes sense. And yeah, maybe pop psychology oversimplifies Yerkes Dodson, but the book says it's well supported in sports psych. Athletes use fear of losing, students' fear of failing. Stress can motivate. So for leaders, it's not just finding your sweet spot on that curve, but realizing everyone on your team has a different one. You need to tailor things, manage workloads, offer support, so everyone's challenged but not overwhelmed. How do you actually do that, though? Gauge it for different people.
It takes really paying attention, empathy, good communication, asking the right questions. And building on that, Principle 11, work backwards with control theory. This tackles the reality that things rarely go exactly as planned. Like trying to lose weight, you won't lose exactly 1 pound every week. Control theory gives you a framework for dealing with that using feedback loops. 3 rules. 1, start at the end, work backward. 2, find the right pace, hard but doable progress. 3, adjust based on where you're going, not just where you've slipped up in the past.
That feels much more proactive than just firefighting. Like for a big project, instead of just fixing today's crisis, you keep asking, okay, when's the launch date and what has to happen between now and then? The book also flags that telephone game problem in big companies. When the experts, the SMEs, are separated from decision makers by layers of project managers, information gets distorted, decisions slow way down.
Yes, and a great solution for that, which the author mentions, is agile methodology. It's built for iteration. Real-time collaboration cuts through those silos. It also connects to Jeff Bezos' day one idea at Amazon. Constant experimenting, being okay with failures. He says, the process is not the thing. Don't let how you do it get in the way of the what.
That clarity you get from starting with the end, the Stephen Covey's idea too. Begin with the end in mind. Apply control theory to your whole life by thinking about the end goal. It really does, as the book says, clear the mental fog, helps you prioritize. But even with a clear goal, sometimes jumping into action isn't the best move. Which brings us to Principle 12, strategic patience.
Exactly. This one pushes back against our bias for doing something immediately. Sometimes the smartest move is just to wait. Sit on it, wait and see.
The book uses a hypothetical marriage decision. If you have lots of time and options, your standard should probably be higher. But people often lower them too fast just to get it over with. And the benefits of waiting. You might hear what others really think before you show your hand. And sometimes, problems just sort themselves out without you needing to jump in. Saves energy. Managing your emotions is key here. The book suggests that mini-pause between stimulus and reaction. Observe things a bit more coolly.
And a really powerful tool for this.
Great.
Breathing techniques. Seriously. Think Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Shaq, Kobe. They all used breathing to control heart rate, calm their brains, get into that flow state under pressure. It's a physical hack for better decisions.
Okay, breathing. Got it. Next, Principle 13. Separate signal from noise.
This is huge. So much of the daily feedback, the data we get, is just noise. Doesn't really mean anything long term. The book mentions Carver's psychological biases that make it hard. We misperceive reality, focus on the wrong signal, get bogged down by perfectionism, or maybe we're too laid back and miss important stuff. So how do you fight that? The advice is, take the long view. Ask yourself, where was my career 5 years ago? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Does this current blip actually change that? Seeking out a trusted mentor for an unbiased opinion helps too. The author shares a personal story, an underreaction error from his trading days, a series of small losses. He dismissed them as noise, but looking back, it was a clear signal of a bigger problem.
That's a good warning for leaders. Don't underreact to those potential red signals in your career. You know, the company's struggling, you keep getting the same negative feedback, culture feels toxic. Don't be the frog in boiling water, right? Not noticing until it's too late.
Exactly. The book mentions an analyst, Berg, warning about COVID way back in early 2020. People saw it as a tail risk, just noise. Turned out to be a massive signal. So yeah, a little bit of healthy paranoia, as the author puts it, can actually be really useful. Helps you spot the real threats hiding in the noise.
Okay, that makes sense. And understanding signals definitely relates to understanding people, which leads us neatly into the big 5 personality traits. So these are the 5 broad dimensions: extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and conscientiousness. And the key thing is, these aren't like boxes you're in. Personality is on a spectrum. It's situational, can change depending on context.
Absolutely. So for extroversion, Principle 14 is read the room and call on introverts. The author tells a story from early in his career about working with this super extrovert he called HPOS, Human Piranha on Steroids. Hilarious nickname. But despite being total opposites, the author is more introverted. They actually worked really well together.
So the insight for leaders is extroverts get energy from being around people. Introverts often get drained by it. Susan Cain's book, Quiet, argued we need to stop forcing constant group work because it often shuts down introverts' best thinking.
Right, so the actionable advice is pay attention, read the nonverbal cues, and deliberately ask introverts for their input. Open-ended questions like, what stands out to you here?
Yeah.
Make sure everyone gets a chance to speak, and maybe even think about a one-end rule for airtime in meetings.
Good tip. Okay, next is agreeableness. Principle 15. Be disagreeable sometimes. Agreeableness is basically how willing you are to cooperate, go along, get along, be pleasant.
Yeah, but here's the counterintuitive bit. Being too agreeable can make a leader really ineffective, especially when tough calls are needed. You become a pushover. Think Logan Roy from Succession for the extreme opposite, total.
Yeah, definitely not agreeable. So the book suggests aiming for, being disagreeable maybe 10% of the time, choosing your moments carefully. Like that saying, any man who must say I am the king is no true king. Real authority isn't about being nice all the time.
Exactly. And context is huge here. In some fields, like the military or maybe high-stakes finance, being too agreeable can actually be a negative. You need that radical candor, that directness.
Okay, next up, neuroticism. Principle 16 is learn to love worry and harness neuroticism. Neuroticism is that tendency to worry, be anxious, maybe emotionally reactive. High levels are linked to mental health issues, sure.
But some neuroticism is actually really useful. It fuels vigilance, motivation, attention to detail, a focused drive,
Yeah.
active imagination, even intuitive problem solving.
The book contrasts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Armstrong, famously low neuroticism, super calm during the Apollo 11 crisis, later just wanted a quiet life. Aldrin, higher neuroticism, really struggled publicly with anxiety and depression after the moon landing.
It's a striking contrast. So the advice for leaders, if someone on your team is high in neuroticism, let them vent sometimes. Just listen. Don't always jump to fixing it. And for those naturally low in neuroticism, maybe a gentle push is needed. Help them find that optimal stress point on their Yerkes-Dodson curve. A little bit of worry can actually boost performance.
Harnessing worry. Interesting. Okay, principle 17. Try the scorpion and embrace novelty. This is about openness. The author illustrates this with his own exotic food challenge on work trips, trying weird sea creatures, insects.
Yeah, openness is that pull towards new things, new experiences. The opposite is someone who loves routine, tradition, like the Queen maybe, or Warren Buffett, with his very consistent habits. Openness drives innovation, obviously. Outsiders aren't trapped by paradigms, as Abig says. They see things differently.
But extreme openness can be a problem for leaders too, right? Lack of focus, chasing every shiny new object.
Definitely. And maybe not enough healthy skepticism. Surrounding yourself only with yes people because you love new ideas so much.
So the advice is, actively learn things outside your usual domain. Broaden your horizons. And within your team, encourage that loyal opposition. Have someone play devil's advocate. It makes the final idea stronger.
Absolutely. Okay, last one of the big five. Conscientiousness. Principle 18. Don't cram and build habits. Conscientiousness is about being disciplined, organized, dependable. The author admits he learned this the hard way, failed an accounting exam because he crammed. Realized that knowledge wasn't durable. It faded fast.
People often call this the super trait, don't they? Because it's so strongly linked to success in school and work. CEOs, elite athletes, usually very high in conscientiousness. They show up, they work hard.
Yeah, but here's the good news. It's the least heritable of the big five. Yeah. Meaning you can actually develop it. You can learn to be more conscientious.
And the key is habits, like Charles Duhigg's Power of Habit or James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Exactly. Using that cue behavior reward loop. Making small improvements every day. They compound over time into massive change. Sustainable high performance.
But even conscientiousness has downsides, like perfectionism.
Yeah.
Workaholism.
For sure. And the challenge for leaders is knowing when to really dig into the details and when, the 80-20 rule applies. When is good enough actually good enough? The book uses Tesla releasing imperfect self-driving features as an example. Get it out there, gather data, improve fast, speed over initial perfection.
So it comes back to balance again, having diversity on the team, people who love the details and people who are okay with moving fast and iterating.
Precisely, finding that balance for the whole organization.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground. We started with positive psychology, the PERMA framework, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning accomplishment as a foundation for well-being. Then we looked at actually getting things done, optimizing stress with Yerkes-Dodson, working backward with control theory, using strategic patience, and separating signal from noise.
And we finish by digging into personality with the big five. Extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and conscientiousness. Understanding ourselves and others better through that lens.
So what's the big takeaway for you, the listener, as a leader or aspiring leader? It seems the core message isn't about going to extremes. It's about finding balance. It's about self-awareness and awareness of the people around you, continuous adaptation.
Yeah, I think that's right. And maybe as you think about all these tools and ideas, the most powerful thing isn't just what you learn today. It's about committing to being your own kind of lifelong psychological researcher, always observing, always adapting, always tweaking your own operating system for navigating this complex world of life and leadership.